I think there is one massive stereotype that a lot of people do talk about as well, that you can be jack of all trades and master of none.
These properties are a mix of a residential and a commercial side of the things. They work perfectly in the market. There's a huge demand in the market for it as well.
These houses would become net positive even more because the principal gets paid down quite quickly.
The biggest issue that we have in the market is people want to achieve it, but there are a lot of third-party channels they have in between.
Co-living properties can generate almost $140,000 in passive income and net of $40,000 in passive income after mortgage repayments, and they sit in an average yield of about 10%. Hello and welcome to another episode of Help Me Buy Property podcast. Today's discussion is all about tenancy, rentals, and roaming house operations. It's an interesting discussion because we are going to not only learn today about how the roaming house operators work, but what sort of tenancy issues, what sort of completion issues, what sort of builders management, what sort of construction management, how does the registration of roaming house operation happens is what we are going to unpack and discuss this today. For that discussion today, I have a really good friend of mine today coming into the podcast for the first time, Mr. Sid Sharma. Sid, how are you today, bro?
I'm very well, bro. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, thank you so much. It's so good to be alive and be in this room here today.
It's a bit of a deja vu as well, isn't it? Because I remember the first time we actually met was in this room.
Thinking about this, I'm so glad. I don't think a lot of people in Melbourne have been able to achieve that. So I'm glad that I can sit down with Moss twice in a year for a podcast.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot has changed. A lot of things have come out.
Yes. And you've started off on, a property management journey.
Yes.
And so let's unpack and talk a bit about that. What are you doing? What has been up to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But first of all, before I go ahead, I would like to congratulate you because I saw that you guys are top 100 in the country in the Australian Financial Review.
Yes.
I mean, that's a goal for our business to go through, to be honest. I really want to achieve that scale to go through, and looking at you and making sure the IPG is achieving it. It's just something totally different. I never saw somebody very close to me was climbed up the ladder, which is so high to reach.
Yeah.
I mean, just commendable. Most what you've done is just amazing.
I think the team has done an amazing job. The fastest starting company, as reviewed by Australian Financial Review. We were also the fastest growing property investment firm. Have a lot of awards this year as well. The Property Renovator Award, the Property Innovation Award. We have a Social Enterprise Awards. So there's heaps of stuff that are coming in the pipeline in, truly celebrating the success as to what the brand is doing together. So yeah,
that's awesome.
It's amazing to see the whole team through. I think our team has grown from like literally a team of, if I take myself back 3 years ago, where we were a team of maybe 5 or 6 to a team of 48 right now across the world. So not just country, like we have team everywhere right now, US, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, everywhere. So it's just amazing to see how, and like even Australia, like we have a team in Perth, Queensland, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney. So it's just amazing to see that growth coming through across the whole brand.
And then we have multiple other businesses attached to.
It's not that we don't, but roaming house operations and cash flow real estate was the key on entering us and giving us a bit of a leverage around, starting up that brand on the Help Me Rent side of things. And so and it's a good segue, but talk to us about how does that work, and, how did it happen, and, talk to us about your story.
Sure. I'm thinking about the fact that shall I go a long route or a shorter route? Because I get it from a lot of people. So we have a lot on the plate. We have such a massive plan for the business. We started a few months ago, and we have been able to achieve targets that were not in place. I mean, our KPIs were way lower than what we have been able to achieve until now as a business. We have been able to fulfill our clients' needs way better than how we were positioned initially. And that has been a long road of understanding the property itself, understanding the new niche which has generated in the market. A lot of it, I compare it with gold rush. When it comes down to having a gold rush in a country, when Australia had gold rush, it took a long time for the normal people to actually get into the market and understand. There are a lot of investors who understand residential sector of the property, but there are a lot of people who really want to get into a segment where they have cash flow generated on the side. That's when rooming houses come into action. Us as a property management company, we are very well positioned because we understand the nitty-gritty of rooming houses. Me being from New Zealand, I've ran rooming houses for a long period of time. I've dealt with boarding houses. So that's when we realized that, hey, what other companies are doing is totally different to what we could come out with. We could have a lot more savings for our clients here, and we could just take away the hassle of them running this property or actually dealing with the property managers on regular basis. We have just taken that out for them. They don't really have to worry about their property, their rooming house, when they have us managing their property, because we have taken care of everything. And 90% of our clients are actually overseas clients or interstate clients, and they're only going to be stepping into their properties once a year.
Definitely.
So they solely rely on us as a property management business to come up with solutions, to have the situation diffuse even before it arises in front of the landlord. Or what I tell my staff is, we are not the people who bring problem to the landlords. We are the people who bring the solution to the landlords.
Amazing.
So we want to provide solutions. There is a problem. Fine. But our job is to provide solutions.
Sure.
So if my property manager called you, he will provide you a solution with the problem. Yes, it's a bad news, but the good news is we give you a solution that this is
how we're going to solve.
Oh, this is what has been done. That's what happens.
It's already done.
90% of
There's
time.
a problem. We've got the solution. It's done and dusted.
And 2 hours later, the landlord gets to hear it and he's like, oh, is it done already? So the situation changes in the sense that anxiety that you had straight away when you had that phone call just dies, because you're like, oh, my partner is just amazing. They've done it already.
So how many rooms are you basically looking at,
So right now, with the trajectory that we're working in the market, we're looking at closing this financial year at around 450 rooms in Victorian region.
Amazing.
Which is a huge thing for us as a brand new business in the market. But we have been able to get systems, we have been able to get people, we have been able to get trades, everything up and running within Victoria and all around in all the regions. Without any issues.
And 450 rooms, like for viewers and listeners, that's almost 450 properties, right?
It's almost 450 apartments.
Yeah, exactly. And if I take a step back, for a normal bystander, owning 9 properties or 5 properties is almost like a dream that they can think about, but they would not be like really thinking about achieving it, right? Because they're like, oh, I would never get to like 9 properties in first year, right?
Never.
Whereas, a single rooming house in today's time can basically get them getting 9 rents coming out every month.
I think when I said brush, that's what the brush is.
Correct.
Because a lot of people, what we have analyzed or what we have realized after talking to a lot of our clients collectively, that a lot of people, things have changed. When the interest rates are high, people are looking forward to something, looking forward to an innovation where they want to have a cash flow coming into their in pockets. Whereas there's no such property in the market who could generate cash flow for you. Even commercial properties don't generate cash flow for you right now.
Correct.
They don't even break even.
Yeah, of course.
Good old times, 10 years ago, if you had a commercial property, you'd be happy that you bought it at, let's say 7% yield. Or let's say you bought it at whatever you bought it at, you'll still be making something out of that property. You'll have a leftover. Whereas there's nothing in the market right now, unless you're going into industrial side of the things, which is a huge amount of investment. Everybody not A general person who's working 9 to 5 is not able to achieve that because you have to have a huge amount of capital coming to you.
100%.
So these properties are a mix of a residential and a commercial side of the things. They work perfectly in the market. There's a huge demand in the market for it as well. We see the type of people that go into these properties are just immaculate. We've got lawyers living in these properties. We've got accountants. We've got
nurses.
I've got nurses. I've got surgeons living in a property. Personally, myself, I never believed that the type of clients we are going to be dealing in terms of our tenants is going to be that high.
Yeah.
I was looking at normal 9 to 5 people.
Yeah.
Potentially a few accountants.
But it's also,
don't get yourself taken on a ride by property spookers, so-called property investment advisors, or buyer's agents who are selling house and land packages or off-the-plan properties or apartments. Get yourself a copy of this book called The Millennial's Guide to Property Investing. This book is not just for millennials. The title suggests, but it's actually the most advanced way of investing in property. This book will relate to your clients, your colleagues, and other business owners. There are so many property spookers out there who have come out of the woodwork over the last 3 to 5 years. And there is so much misinformation out there that I had to write a book about all the F-ups that people can actually avoid in order to be super successful in the property investment journey. Some of these are really easy to identify, but they are so costly to fix once these mistakes are made. So it's a short book. It's easy to read. It has a lot of stories. It has a lot of examples, and it is a true guide for people who wants to do it themselves. My name is Moxin Reza. This is my story, and a lot of you will relate to parts of this story if you're not born in the riches and if you're trying to build a property portfolio that can last generations and help you improve your lifestyle along the way. So I give you a chance to come out there and have a read. Be kind, stay safe, keep smiling, keep investing, and please do check out the book.
it also comes down to the quality of the house that you're building in, the furnishing, and how are you presenting it, etc. Right? If you have an old grubby house, then of course you would not expect a quality tenant living in there, right? You would expect someone with the cuckoo mindset, who is living on, housing commission, rental assistance, and, you would attract that sort of clientele, right?
Absolutely.
But if you have a nice facade and an amazing, ambience and a bit of music, going around in the house and, amazing furnishing, etc., of course you would attract a quality tenant, right?
100%. And also the biggest thing with that is you're buying an asset today, you're constructing on it. So it's obviously going to go up in value. Because since it has a commercial side to it as well, it goes up in value way more once it's rented out in the first couple of months.
Oh, 100%.
You were
100%. I had the first. So I've talked about my first one as well, but, I'll talk about the second one. We just recently got rented. And you think about that, it costed me about less than $1 million to build because the prices were cheap at that time and we got a land at a really good price. I got valued at $1.3 million, like $300,000 coming out of this. Pretty much right away. So it was just amazing. Yeah.
So you
and it's still net positive. Like the funny thing is this, right? So the amazing thing is this, that, even if I take my loan to the maximum exposure, so I take it to 80% of $1.3 million, there is still, it does not break my bank. Like the property still remains net positive and I have the money to now go out there and buy the next one. And in year 3 or year 4, because I'm paying principal and interest on these houses, I'm not using this to fund my lifestyle. These houses would become net positive even more because the principal gets paid down quite quickly.
That, as well as the rents are going to go up by at least 5% a year.
Correct. Yeah.
You are basically beating inflation way ahead of time.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was telling my wife, I was having this interesting discussion just yesterday with my wife, because, she was asking me, what are we doing with this 300,000? Can I buy this and buy that and buy this? And I was like, no, we'll just buy another one. And she's like, so how many is enough? And I was like, till the bank says no to me, I'll keep doing it one every year. Exactly. It's a no-brainer, right? Because of course, the two things that I feel would definitely happen is, one is that the bank's risk appetite would definitely change, right?
It has to.
Yeah. And you can see that already happening through, right? But the good news is that there would be other banks who would start entering. There was news about Commonwealth Bank offering 15 years interest-free loans for the first time in Australia. Okay. Has it ever happened, right?
Wow.
US, you have 30-year fixed term loans. you have Commonwealth Bank first time saying we are going to offer you 15 years of interest-free loan. So one of the biggest problem with an interest-free loan is that you would have to always refinance it every 3 years because that's the title.
Yep.
And you would have to provide and go through that cycle of refinancing and providing all the documentation, etc. Right? Now, 15 years of interest-free loan. That's it. It's there. You don't have to worry about it. It's a perfect opportunity for investors, right? So you would see that happening through. The third thing is that, of course, the way the real estate market is going and the way the prices are going, there would only be two opportunities for an owner occupier. These first home buyers would disappear and there would only be two opportunities. One, either you wait for your inheritance to come through to you so that you can buy a property, or you rent for your life.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's the dynamics that is going to be at play in the next 15 to 20 years, right?
But people have a very short-term memory.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem with people, right? And I don't, when I say people, I am including myself and yourself in that people as well. When we have to spend money, it could be anyone. It doesn't matter that it's just you, me, or it could be, Moss, it could be Sid, it could be Jack, it could be anyone. When you have to spend money, your eyes open up, right? In this scenario here, you're spending the same amount of money you're going into resi property, but here it gives you cash back.
Correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I see a lot of our clients are doing, offsetting and stuff as well, where they would have a rooming house and they've got another 5 properties which are being offset by this rooming house income. Why? Because they don't want to sell this rooming house. So they're leveraging this here with another 5 properties.
Yes.
They are going to sell those one each in next 5 to 10 years time whenever they want to and cash out.
Definitely.
So because people don't need that income. They already have sufficient income coming in. They just want to make sure that my property doesn't I don't have to pay for my property.
Yes.
So if the properties can pay for each other after the deposit is paid, happy days. And I as an investor, I'm happy to pay my deposit. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you ask me for a single penny after that, I might cry. So that's what it comes down to.
Let's take a step back. So help me rent, for 50 rooms. That's amazing. It's an awesome, business model. Take us through the journey of an investor. So let's say if I come to you as an investor and if I have a rooming house, how does the process work?
Sure. It's a very intricate process and the process itself hasn't been disclosed in the market. So a lot of investors actually who are in the market don't understand what needs to be done in terms of management and running of a rooming house. There's quite a few steps involved in it. What we have done is we have broken those steps down and we have taken the hassle away from the landlord itself. So once the owner has been introduced to us, the landlord has been introduced to us, we sit down with the landlord, we take them through the whole journey of the property management and make them understand that, hey, as a rooming house manager, this is what we are, this is the service that we're going to be providing to you as a property manager.
There is a step before this even, right?
So what we do is that initial meeting that we have is going to be in very earlier in the cycle before even they start constructing the property.
Yes.
So at the time when they're planning, they're going through building permits and everything, they come to me if any questions they have. Even prior to that as well, we already have a meeting prior to that.
Even when selecting the suburb, right, to a certain extent, right? There is a massive input that you're providing in 100%. Validating the data. So talk us a bit about that.
So I'm going to start from the very starting cycle of suburb selection to tenant, to landlord and to tenant.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of data research that goes into background, and I keep saying that on my channel as well and stuff. I really want to bring it down to why we say that we are looking towards a lot of data. Data is a key indicator for us, and data gives us history. And if the history works in the favor of our landlords, that's what we want to make sure that it does.
Definitely.
We go out into different areas on monthly basis. We sit down and we look at new areas, new opportunities, and what is coming in the area. First of all, we go down to the suburb. We look at what kind of government funding is coming into the area, what hospitals are here,
infrastructure,
what school zones are here, the type of people, how many renters versus how many homeowners are living in the suburb as well. So there are a lot of data sets which are basic that we look at before selecting a suburb. Once these data sets have been achieved, we would now understand that, hey, this suburb, from the top of the look, it looks perfectly fine.
Yeah. So what you're basically doing is you're looking at areas where the rental affordability is high, but the amount of houses available for rent is very low. And so that's the disparity that you're basically looking for.
And we are also looking for single people looking for single rooms.
Yeah.
And that data is basically not available to a lot of people in the market. It's very hardly sourced data that we have access to. So we get to understand that, hey, these are the amount of people who were generally in the market last month or the month before. We can go as back as last 10 years, basically.
Yeah.
And that's one of the prime focuses that we have. So we go down and we look at the number of room supply in the area and the number of people looking for the area. If the number of people looking in the area has always been above the room supply, that is another confirmation for us.
Yeah.
Right. And that's perfect. The suburb is, if that's the scenario from the top of it, now we've gone into the bottom, the suburb is now validated.
And it's important to understand this because especially if you're custom designing and custom building and you want to see the trend tracking for the last 5 years, right?
And it's important for us as well.
Yeah, of course, because you would bring this house out in probably like 12 months time or 8 months time or 10 years time, or the client might decide to defer it and bring it out in 2 years time, right?
Absolutely.
So it's more about the longevity of the suburb rather than the point in time. And so it makes total sense. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the reason why we look at the infrastructure and the amount of government funding coming into the area, because if there is government funding coming in, there's government jobs coming in, which attracts more private companies into the areas as well.
Of course, there will be more population.
Growth, more population coming in. That could be short-lived during the construction is going on, but obviously once that construction is finished, there'll be more working people coming in.
Of course, like hospitals, you have like hospitals with 3,000 beds. There would be like 2,000 people, doctors and patients, etc., who are basically walking through the place. And so
these are small things that we look at, and we do not discard anything that we look in the market. We always make sure that if there's something negative attached to it, we thoroughly look into that side of it. And if we have to make a visit to the area, talk to local agents and, talk to local people, understand that, how we are navigating, we do that as well.
Now, data can definitely lie, right? Being a data scientist, I always say this out that, your paranoia to data should be really high because I can make anything look like, like pretty because of the points that I'm choosing, right? So talk to us a bit about what you do at the local level in the market side of things when you're testing out with, what you call it proxy listings, because that's an amazing idea.
It is. So once this has happened, once this is done, now we know that this suburb is ready to be tested out. And we can't test it out with a live person who buys a property there and goes in, spends $1.5 million, and then
a lot of companies do, by the way. You see it in the IS, vacant properties listing there, sitting there because that's how they're testing the market, right?
On that note, if you don't, I'm not sure if you've discussed this or not. There are people who have recently come to us. They're converting their NDIS properties to roofing houses. They won't rent it out now because they haven't been able to find a tenant in past 7 months.
Yes. Yeah.
8 months.
So they haven't done their research in shortlisting and the suburb selection properly. Yeah.
Whereas we go down to the ground. So what we are going to do now is, once we have rectified that this suburb works for us, the top of the line, the bottom of the line works for us, we're going to put, and to test out the market to actually make sure that there are these many people looking in the area, we need to have something. Since we have access to, different websites and different advertising, we advertise the property in the region. Without disclosing the address of the property.
Yeah.
And that's how we run the advertisements for the first 4 weeks. Every week we sit down as a board. We make a decision that this is how the first week has been. This is how the second week has been. At the end of the 4th week is when we have a final meeting and decide if the suburb is even worth for our clients to enter in a long-term position.
Amazing. Yeah.
So,
and this is well before any construction or contract of sale have been signed.
Or even before we tell the client that you could potentially build here.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like due diligence at its core. Yeah, this is due diligence at its core because you are doing this consistently, constantly every month, making sure you would open up new suburbs, but you would close up old suburbs too, right? Because you'd be like, hi, we don't want to build here. Whereas it's quite interesting because a lot of people follow the herd, right? And so they see, hey, there are people building there and they'll just go out and build there. Whereas you have basically done your work and you're basically transitioning out. And so it's evidence-based investing at its peak, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the epitome of IPG itself. Being ethical, making sure that we have run the numbers, making sure you have tested the market. That sits at the core of everything for us. The reason why we do that is all not just for the clients itself, it's also for the benefit of the company. Because if we are launching something out in the market, we don't want to be one of those people who can't fulfill what they're saying.
Yeah.
So we want to have our mouth where we know that this is going to work.
100%, under promise and over deliver.
We have gone in there. And the number of times we have somebody or the other who picks up the baton and goes, hey, I will be the first one to do it. And that's usually one of the directors within our businesses or somebody that we know very closely who relies on us, who does that. And it does wonders because there are people who rely on us left, right, and center
Of course.
to basically not go through the hassle of developing a property portfolio. And that's the whole journey for a client, you know. They don't even have to step out of the house and worry about it. Like the other day, we had a meeting with a client who basically did everything. I'm not going to name the country, from a third country.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even returned yet. His rooming house is on the market right now. We did
And it's ready. Yeah.
tenants. Hopefully Sunday we'll get to know how many
Yeah.
applications and everything.
The funny thing is that he bought this land on his own. And, this is the interesting bit, right? Which was not part of his property plan, because he did this acquisition probably like 3 years before he came to us. And so it was one of those lands that settles, in the future. And so he was building a normal house on it first, which was going to be costing him probably about $25,000 to $30,000 in holding cost.
Wow.
For him to basically build that. Now, he didn't want it to hold it. So he tried basically selling the land or selling the contract. He was making a loss of $20,000. And then he decided to, okay, if I go down and build a normal house and try to sell it, he was still making, instead of 20, he was making actually 50,000 loss because now he has to pay GST on it, right? So it was always a loss to loss, scenario, right? So when he first came in and we did the property strategy for him, I suggested him, we need to do a roaming house here. He's like, honestly, he was very intrigued. And he's like, oh, what should I do? How does it work? Fast forward almost like 8 months now. He has a house that is generating close to about $20,000 in like money, coming back to him, taking depreciation, etc., everything into account. He has a property that is going to go up in value, of course. And he solved the problem of not trying to sell the property with a loss right now.
Absolutely.
The funny thing is that he's so sold that he has another property in Melbourne, which he's converting as well. He's like, I want to get rid of this house and now convert this into a rooming house as well.
But that's the beauty of it as well.
Because he
You need
understands.
to understand. Same property would fetch out a rent of around, I would say, at the maximum, I could rent it out for $620 per week.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, it's going to be generating close to $1,000 in weekly rental income, which is $52,000 a year.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right. Your expenses do go up as a rooming house in the sense that you do pay the utilities. But we've done the calculations. We know how much it goes up by and stuff.
Correct. Yeah.
You still have a positive cash flow out of your residential property when you're doing it this way.
Yeah. And I mean, it's quite interesting, right? So in today's time, where a normal average investor interest rate sits at around 7.5%.
And that's a wrap for part one. Together, we set the stage for everything that you need to know about the changing dynamics of the shell and property market when it comes to rooming houses and rental acquisitions and property management, and how they are changing the game for investors looking for high yield and future-proof strategies. Now, you're not just talking about the Help Me Rent. We are also talking about how it came into being. In the next episode, we'll go deeper into talking about, what comes after the main deal, the council approvals, the registrations, the ground requirements, etc., and everything that you need to know to get your property registered and running legally. In today's conversation, we opened your eyes to a new way of investing, and be sure that you're subscribing to our channel, sharing and reaching out. We are just getting started. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Stay safe. Keep smiling. Keep investing. Watch for the part 2. This is Moss checking out. Adios.